Yeah, but actually, because I had them all switched off. But yeah, looks like Facebook for Oak Barrel, Facebook for Society, YouTube for Oak Barrel. There's no one there watching that yet, but I'm sure my mum will tune in soon.
Have you got it on, by the way?
Oh, I'm sitting here thinking, shit, I should have told my mum or my dad that I'm actually doing.
Yeah, we're definitely live on my page. There you go.
Beautiful. The system works. You love to see it. Well, g'day everyone. It's a Wednesday night here for our second Whisky Roundtable, which is a very easygoing, dram-in-hand talk about all things whisky. Yeah, I'd hurry up. We've got a special guest with us tonight. Obviously, Peter Bignell from the Belgrove Distillery. How you doing, mate?
Yep, very well, thank you.
Sitting there in the dark with Tassie's lights turned off. That's all right.
What's happened to the background lighting?
Yeah. I think maybe to kick us off and ease in, do we want to go around maybe starting with Matt Bailey? I'm all switched off, but yeah. Yeah, say what you're drinking, who you are and why you matter. Our Facebook.
What's happened to the ducks?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone who's tuning in live, and hello, everyone on the roundtable. I'm sure many of you met me from last week or week before, but it's Matt Bailey, and I work for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, which is the world's biggest independent bottler. So I'm really glad to be here and have a chat and drink some whiskey and talk some nonsense. Why not?
As opposed to when you're not on a live stream and you talk a lot of sensible things.
Yeah, sure, mate.
Milne.
All right. Hey, I'm Andy. I work for Southtrade International. So I work as a brand manager on whiskey, spirits, agave, and on-premise specialty brands. But previously worked for Whisky Exchange for quite a few years under Zaginder and Rajbir in the UK. Actually, I realised on the weekend that I've just passed over 14 years in the industry, which makes me feel like a bit of a grandfather at the moment. But yeah.
I'm only 14 years old, mate, so that's a pretty good achievement.
I'm this close to being 50% of my life, which is, I don't know what's better or worse.
Alex.
Alex Dahlenburg. I'm with Speakeasy Group, so I look after Mjolner and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is a new one that's just opened up in the CBD. And I like drinking whiskey.
I think congratulations are in order
yes.
for the Speakeasy Group overnight. Do you want to tell us a little bit about why you've got 2 of the 10 best bars in Asia Pacific?
Tales of the Cocktails, so the Spirited Awards for 2020 just released their regional honorees, I suppose. Mjolner got in, which is my first international recognition for the venue since trading. We won the New York Design Awards as well, but that wasn't while we were trading, it was just after we started. So we are an honoree in the best restaurant bar with some amazing places like Hubert and Continental Deli. And then Eau de Vie has been nominated again, Eau de Vie Melbourne has been nominated again in best high volume cocktail bar. So yeah, pretty excited today. I spoke to Greg Sanderson and he said he'd give up every award he's ever won just to make sure that we're all working again.
Yeah.
All the employees were back in venue and working and making money. So it was a bit bittersweet, but very, very grateful for the nomination.
Yeah, bit of good news in a pretty average situation at the moment. Yeah. So we hold on to those good news pieces as much as possible at the moment, I think.
A couple of years in celebration tonight.
Yeah. And also we're not really here to talk about rum, but Brix Distillers, best unaged rum at San Francisco overnight as well, which is very, very good. But tonight we have a very special guest from down in Tasmania who was very vocal on the Facebook chat last week, so we thought we'd give him a seat at the table this week. Peter Bignell, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you, Scott. Anybody else who happens to be out there?
Yeah. There's a few people watching. How is things in Tassie?
Really, really good. It's day to day with this coronavirus. It's not affecting me just in my work day, except that I am actually turned a fair bit of time over to making hand sanitizer. But other than that, just today in the distillery, wouldn't know anything's happening around the place, except we aren't getting any visitors. That's a big difference. We were getting quite a few tours through, and not any. Haven't had any for weeks. They're just suddenly bang, they stopped.
Yeah,
it's usual for farmers at the moment.
What was that about the farmers? We got a slightly dodgy line here, so we too many people on the net, I think.
I said it's business as usual for farmers at the moment.
Farmers, yes, it is, yes, and great business too, because we've had quite a lot of rain lately. Yeah. And I did post on Facebook a week or so ago that we'd had a beautiful autumn rain, not a huge rain yet, but really nicely timed. And so I sowed about 20 hectares of rye a bit over a week ago, and this afternoon down came some more rain. It's all just poking its head up out of the dirt, so the nice green tinge across the paddocks now. Beautiful.
A couple of quick g'days on the Facebook on the Oakvale Facebook to Jimmy Finnegan and Jose. I want to talk about hand sanitizer in a bit, Peter, but I mean, from where you are, you're a little bit further north of Hobart, for those people who aren't familiar with the Belgrove distillery. But have you spoken to many people in sort of Hobart to Launceston in the towns and how they've been affected? Because obviously a lot of tourists, at least with the companies that we work with, there's a lot of tourism, income from them.
Oh, yeah, with tourism's pretty well just stopped dead. Yeah, people just aren't allowed to go out in more than 2 people at a time. Can't even go to the coast, go fishing or anything like that, unless you're fishing in your own municipality, that sort of thing. It's just nobody's moving anywhere. Yeah.
Now I want to throw a question out to Milne, actually, coming from the UK part of the whiskey industry up until a couple of years ago. I think Australia is, or at least the whiskey community in Australia, is quite familiar with Peter and Belgrove, or at least the people in this live chatter. What did you hear about this crazy Tasmanian distillery in the rest of the world, prior to coming out to Australia?
It's pretty limited, I'll be honest. So the only 3 whiskies I ever saw in the UK that were, even remotely available was Hellier's Road. Starward was just creeping through towards the end, the last couple of years that I was there. And Bakery Hill was the other one. And they were pretty much the only 3 that you could find if you went searching for Australian whiskey. That's what you come across. Belgrove I'd come across in various bars. So a few specialist whiskey bars, you'd find it and sort of go, this looks different, this is weird. This is a completely different bottle from the sort of traditional whiskey bottle. And so it always, every time I've seen it, it's always piqued interest, and you go, oh, what is that? But you had to go digging pretty hard and pretty heavy to get close to finding.
Yeah. Peter, I mean, do you want to give like a quick, minute or 2 overview on sort of your history, particularly coming into whiskey? Not so much when you're relatively established and now an award-winning distiller, as we all know you are now, but like those formative years and what got you into whiskey?
What got me into whiskey was Nant. I got a job there restoring the old flour mill that was driven by a big water wheel, and they wanted me to restore it all so that it would grist their grain to make the whiskey. So you can just set the millstone just so that it would coarse grist, and the place was pretty well derelict, and just the old machinery. I just love playing with machinery, especially very basic type machinery. And over about a year, I suppose, I potted away there fixing this old mill up, and while the rest of the distillery was being built. And it just fascinated me, the stills and all the piping and the condensers and things like that, because I have got an agricultural science degree and a lot of chemistry, microbiology, food technology in that degree. And it just fascinated me, this whiskey making business.
Someone's pulled the plug on Tasmania again.
Whiskey before I went there. And while I was there, we haven't got an internet connection. Are we back again, are we?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
Loud and clear.
Oh dear, yeah. Well, I've usually got really good internet here for out in the country, but just tonight no, it's playing up. Yes. Yeah, I don't know where I got up to. I didn't even like whiskey when I went to Nant, but while I was there, Greg Ramsey introduced me to a couple of different whiskies, and one of them was a Lagavulin. And it's the first time I'd actually tasted a smoky whiskey, and it just blew my mind, and I just loved it ever since. Especially the smoky ones. Anyway,
it's a gateway drug for everyone in whiskey.
And that Lagavulin is a gateway to a lot of people coming into whiskey.
Greg is a party animal, so that doesn't help.
Yeah. We're still there, are we?
Yep. Now we got you.
Yep. No, it's getting a little bit choppy. I actually got offered a job as distiller there, and they were going to train me up because I had all this science background and pretty good with my hands. And anyway, I turned the job down. I didn't want to work for somebody else, and actually, fortunately, I did get out of there. A couple of years later, back on my farm, I had a really good crop of rye, and I harvested it all to think, oh, this is a bit extra cash, and I couldn't sell it. There was just a bit of a glut in the market because it was a really good season, and I was just stuck with all this grain I'd harvest, and I thought, oh, what the hell am I going to do with it? I know, I'll build a whiskey distillery, make it into whiskey, a bit easy to sell. Now, in the short term, it wasn't. I thought, oh, a little distillery, I'm making something a little bit different. A rye, there's nobody else was making rye in Australia. And it ticked along very, very slowly there for a long time, but it was really a bit of a side business, so it didn't matter that much that it wasn't selling all that quickly. But gradually over the years, which is 10 years ago now, it's basically consumed my life, and that's what I do now. And the farm is very much on the back burner these days, except for trying to grow rye to feed the distillery with, of course.
Probably the most important question, Peter, is what are you drinking right now?
Oh, what can we see here?
TIB?
Yeah. TIB.
That's the new one.
That's the new one. I don't know if it's actually even out there, the battered malt. So it is an absolute sherry bomb, this thing. But I took down some, a litre or so of hand sanitizer to Tim Duck at Hartwood there on Saturday, and he basically swapped me for a bottle of this. So I thought, oh, very great deal, really, really, really good deal. And there's my glass. Where are you? Oak barrel there. I must have knocked that off up there one time I was there, I think. Yes, but look, I just love it. Just a great range of whiskies. I've known people in the past, that they will drink just one brand, one variety, and that's it. And that's not me. I'll drink anything, alcoholic, non-alcoholic. I just love variety, and there's just so much variety in whiskies.
A couple of comments on the Facebook here. A quick g'day to Dave and/or Caroline Taylor up in the north of Tassie there. Whiskey is my jam. Has a love for Belgrove bottles because they look like olive oil bottles. Nant's a beautiful place to build it. Ali, so proud to have a distillery like Belgrove on our back doorstep. Chow Tran says hi, g'day to Chow. And Blake says g'day as well. A question I'm going to throw probably to Alex and Matt now is, and this, depending on how much whiskey you've drunk in the previous years, might be a little bit difficult to answer, but what do you remember as like your first interaction with Belgrove? When did you first come across Belgrove, and what did you think?
You want to take it, Matt? You go first.
It'll take me a moment, Alex. You go ahead.
Okay. I did when I was at Grain Bar. We were obviously increasing the whiskey portfolio on the back bar. I think I pushed as many as I possibly could get in there. And then I wanted to expand in Australians, and I met a lovely lady called Kathleen Davies, who talked me through a whole of her portfolio, and it really rang true to me about these Aussie farmers, and I got told stories of the lovely Peter Bignell, being a wonderful farmer and would definitely be my type of human, being a farmer's daughter myself. And then we had basically all of the Nip of Courage distillers in at Grain Bar one night, and Peter was fantastic. I think you were there, Scotty.
Yeah, it was a big night before that night. So I think I was there in shell, not necessarily in spirit, but I was definitely there.
Interesting. That night, the shirt I had on was the same as all your bartenders had on.
Yes, that's right. And I think they kept calling you Hollywood. So, yeah, so it was actually Kathleen Davies, an amazing woman in this industry. Got a bit of a girl crush on her, who has introduced me to Belgrove. And since then, it's been on my back bar of all the venues that we have. I have quite a large range of it at Mjolner. And anything that you release, I tend to buy.
You got some of the Bogan Burnout?
The which one?
Bogan Burnout.
No, but it sounds like being a bogan and love doing burnouts myself that I might
Hard
never.
work.
We've actually sold out of the Bogan Burnout, Peter, from what was left over at the fair. It's all gone now.
Right. It's my attempt at making the heaviest peated whiskey in the world. So it's an extremely heavily peated malt whiskey. Or it's not a whiskey yet because it's not 2 years.
What was the ppm?
I don't know. The way I made it, I couldn't. Some of the barley was just black, ringing, dripping, wet black. So that it was, it was all over the place. So it was a bit hard to test it. But what I'm going to do is when it's ready to bottle, I will get the ppm tested then and test that against one of the big Isla ones and just see how it comes out there. And I think that's only true comparison because when you do that, ppms of in the barley, it doesn't necessarily mean what comes out of the whiskey. It's just a number, and it depends on how it's distilled and how long it's aged and how many barrels it went into and all sorts of things. The ppms of what you drink can be very different from what was in the barley, which is what they quote.
I think my interaction with you, Peter, was actually through Kathleen as well, at a whiskey fair. It was, and I think she was pouring some of your whiskey out, and I remember liking it at the time, but I don't think I fully understood what it was all about. And it was like this fascinating difference, I guess, a different pivot in Australian whiskey from what we'd previously seen. But one of the real turning points, and the reason I ducked off camera for a moment there because I knew exactly where it was actually this bottle, which I bought 2 of, and I've got 1 left, which was your oat whiskey from 2017.
Yep.
And it was actually you had Jared on your team at the time, and Jared passed me a bottle of this whilst we were both drinking a bit too much at Lark Cellar Door. And he said, "Oh, we'll sort this out." And I said, "Well, we did." But it was sort of like I picked up 2 of these and I held on to one because it was actually it was bloody tasty. So I'm going to hold on to that one for a little bit longer. But yeah, that was my interactions with Belgrove was first through Kathleen and thinking like 2016 maybe or something like that. And then 2017 was the real sort of epiphany moment with the oat whiskey, which I loved.
Oh, well done.
Matt, do you remember the whiskey fair when I wasn't at the Oak Barrel and you weren't at Society yet, but we worked on Oak Barrel tables for Dave?
Yep. That was 2014.
2014. Now, Peter, did you do whiskey fair in 2014?
Oh, crikey, I can't remember dates. 14.
There was one, and I honestly can't remember, but someone sort of like flung something in front of me and said, "You got to go see that."
Scotty, you and I both worked the fair in 13 and 14, but I know the one you're talking about, that's 14.
14, yeah. Because I remember thinking that, and then a little bit the same as you, Matt. I remember trying it and going, okay, I'm not really sure what this is about. And I think a lot of people in the room that day sort of thought that, and it was very single malt heavy. And even anything Australian was just single malt, and that's the only way to do it. So I think it almost sort of like missed the mark a little bit, but in more recent fairs, it's been very well received and up there with our top sellers. So I
did say that second era though. I mean, I meant that like that first era of where everything was just copying, it was all just copying Scottish malts.
Yeah,
and it was all just sort of from cradle forward or lark forward or whichever version of history you want to play. But it was sort of like that was all just copying the same model, whereas this was totally out the window, and that's what I loved about it. It was a no bullshit approach to what it was, rather than being sort of, oh well, we like what Glenfarclas do, so we're going to do that.
Yeah, Peter, have you found that like people who may have had no experience with rye or in fact any other grain whiskey apart from barley coming back to you on their second go around, their second bite, and going, oh hold on, actually I kind of get that now?
Oh yeah. People are starting to come back for the second. Not, it's hard to tell how many do. Don't even know a lot of them where they buy it, that sort of thing. But no, I got the online orders. I often see, oh yeah, I remember that name, and occasionally I'll flick back through, do a little search. Oh yeah, you bought one here, one there. Yeah, I've got someone who's actually a very great fan of my Black Rye, the coffee liqueur. He buys about 4 bottles every 3 weeks. So I actually put a few little bottles of hand sanitizer in with it this time. Packed it in.
Is that to kill the flavour of the coffee liqueur? Is that what that's for? Or?
If you guys can remember 2014 whiskey show, you guys haven't drank enough whiskey to be able to remember that part.
I didn't say. One of my favourite memories of Whiskey Fair was actually, I think, the 2015, where and Scotty, you'll remember this, or maybe you won't. But I cracked open a tin of beer right at the end of it, at the end of the 3rd session, and everyone's feet were hurting and everyone's voices had gone. And it was actually Bill. Bill passed me a tin, and I opened it up, and that's the last thing I remember about that entire day. Oh, there's my first beer, and it's like gone. The rest of the day is gone. So no, I don't remember everything, but I do remember we worked that fair only because of anecdotally we did.
It's very different from the European shows. There's one in Belgium every year that the first time I went there, I discovered that they have a sort of a staff room. And if you know anything about the Maison de Whisky, the Paris show, they say, you go to this section, you get your food for your lunch snack, and you pay for your lunch as an exhibitor. And it's the most average sort of small sandwich, packet of crisps, and an apple. And you're just like, I'm knackered, hungover, exhausted. This is really not cutting it. But that's all you've got, and you can't leave. So you just take it and go. And when someone said, oh, there's a staff area in this show, I was like, oh, excellent. Walked in, they had platters of cold meats, they had platters of cheeses, baguettes, biscuits, tea, coffee, and then a fridge, floor to ceiling, stacked full of Becks. And I was just like, oh, is that for the end? And they said, no, just whenever. Do you want a beer now? I was like, it was 11 a.m. and they were just like, yeah, sure, I'll have a Becks now. Yeah, why not?
See, the problem in Australia is if we did that, there'd be no one at the stands.
Yeah, exactly. We did rotate between us. It was just like, you go now, you go now, you go now. Are you going to bring me back beers? Come on. Yeah.
Have a question from the crowd for Peter from Regan Owens, who I believe is based down in Melbourne. Any single cask releases on the horizon?
Yes, I got the next peated rye, very, very close. I don't think it's quite ready yet. And there's been another oat, which is they're pretty close as well. I thought they might have been ready by now, but now the winter's come, they might have to sneak out a few more months yet, but they're not very far away.
What is your tasting panel like? Is it just yourself, or do you get the team involved? Or
no, yeah, there's two of us there who do a bit of a taste, and I have got someone else doing some tasting for me at the moment, because I've actually bought quite a few of the Nant barrels that got abandoned or almost abandoned, and we're tasting through those at the moment. Yeah, trying to work out how we can blend them up. There's odd barrel there that's good, but I think we're going to put most of them into a nice big blend or several blends. But yeah, it's not just me.
So are they customer barrels, or is that Nant stock?
They're investor barrels. There was actually never any Nant stock. Yeah, never owned anything himself.
And so are the investors from their side? Are they sort of going blend it to make it good? Kind of, is that sort of
what I've done at the moment? We sort of got held up with this Corona thing, and things have stopped moving at the moment. But
yeah,
anybody who wanted to get their barrels out of Nant, a lot of them, they've just moved them down to my place, and I'm buying them up gradually as people would like to sell them to me. I'm still waiting for the rest of them to come before I make a big move. But yeah, I am buying up quite a few.
Oh, okay. So you're taking on the stock.
Yes, either that or they leave them. Or they leave them in my bond store, and I charge them storage fees. Yeah. So or I bottle it for them. We haven't done much yet because we're still in the process of moving them.
And just to preempt a question as well in regards to that, What prompted that decision? Was that just to provide an outlet for some of those barrels where there weren't many other outlets to go, or is it something that you've seen as an opportunity? Okay, I can create like a vatted single malt or whatever it is that could fill a gap in the market, or?
Yeah, I did have a barrel there myself at one stage that I had as payment for wages, and I didn't spend any money on it, but I got that instead of wages. And when I started up my own distillery, I wanted the barrel to move down to my place, and I argued for about a year trying to get the barrel out, and then actually gave up and said, no, I'll have my money, because I could see this whole scheme was going to go belly up. I just got paid out in time, and that sort of got me interested in what was going on in the background there. And I got on the Facebook group, a couple of Nant Barrel investment Facebook groups, and gave a lot of information that I knew and sort of helped people decide what to do. And then eventually, when AWH got all the barrels out that they wanted, there were a lot left over they didn't particularly want. And because I sort of had a fair bit idea what was going on in the background, and people knew me from these Facebook pages, I offered to buy their barrels, or at least move them to my bond store, then make an assessment, and then buy them if they wanted to, or leave them there and just charge them storage fees until they decided what they wanted to do with them.
Yeah, fair enough.
Scotty, there's a couple of questions coming in on the other page, if you don't mind. Hayden asks a question for Peter: is the new still at Belgrove installed and operating yet?
The big one's not. No, I got. What happened with that? It's built, and I think people have seen photos of it, or partly built. I had quite a nice contract to go into China, and that was which I had enough stock to last 2 years to go into China. Then I badly needed a lot more stock, so my current still wouldn't keep up with it. So I got this new still, and we moved into a new shed just for the brewing, larger vat for mashing in, and larger fermenters. And then the Chinese thing all fell through. So it's still sitting there in the distillery, lying on its side. But until I get time to just slowly get it into working order. But at the moment, there's not the pressure to get it done. But I do have another still there. There's a continuous stripping still, which that one's running. I don't think that's the one they're talking about. It's probably the big 2,000, well, big for me anyway, 2,000 litre copper pot. I've got a continuous one, which I've modified a little bit in the last few days, just to punch out, turn anything that's alcoholic into 80% alcohol for sanitizer.
By modifying, do you mean painting flames on the side and putting some blue LEDs around the bottom?
Well, actually,
raise it.
Yeah. The firebox is actually covered in concrete, and I painted that black, so no diagrams on it. No, just I added a little bit to the top of it. So anybody who knows about column stills, it's got a deflegmator and some packaging on the top of it just to push the alcohol up higher, which is not what I want when I'm using it as a stripping still. I don't want high alcohol, but if I want to put it through in one pass, I've modified it. In fact, I've been monitoring it on my phone. It's ticking away there now, but I just quickly have a look at my phone now and again to make sure it doesn't doesn't misbehave itself. And I only got to hit the button here and turn it off, so it's all right.
So if your background all of a sudden goes very white and red, we know that something's happened in the shed there.
No, we're about 50 metres away, so I'd be very serious if it did.
Do you have anyone on the farm helping you, Peter, or is it just yourself?
Sorry?
Do you have anyone on the farm helping you, or is it just yourself?
I've got someone who looks after the stock. Yeah. It's only a part-time. I don't have a big farm. I've only got 1,100 ewes. In fact, we sold quite a few of those a few weeks ago when it looked like another terrible autumn and winter. And I got rid of them about a fortnight too early. But we've got a backup plan, so that's all right. He looks after those stock. And then Pete Howard, who's my main help in the distillery, he spends quite a bit of time on the farm as well, and any job's got to be done. Obviously, get contractors in to do spraying and a little bit of ploughing and disc-getting and stuff. So I don't do it all myself. There's just not enough hours in a day or days in a week.
And what about And what about your harvesting? Do you do that yourself, or do you get contractors in?
Oh dear, I've been trying and trying. Look, we had such a bad spring that and I totally ran out of irrigation water. I only ended up sowing 2.5 hectares. And that still hasn't been harvested because I just could not get a contractor to come and harvest it. And my old green class header, which is now 60 years old, I cranked that up the other day, so nobody's going to come, and something on it broke, and I fixed that, and then I got a blowout, and I fixed that, and still something else has gone wrong. So I rung up a contractor who's he's another 10 days away, so I don't know if it's ever going to get headed or not. But it looks, it's only 2.5 hectares, but I really want that bit of grain. I've got quite a bit stored, so it'll see me through to next year. But looking like I've got a pretty good crop so far this year. But I'm not a fanatical farmer. Just take it all fairly easy. You know, we say the sheep have got their mouths with them, so they can look after themselves as long as there's a bit of grass there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not intensive farming, so it doesn't take a lot of hands-on work.
Okay. And harvester that you do run, can I ask the question? What colour is it?
It's the harvester.
Mm-hmm.
Green.
Good man.
But I've got no, wrong sort of green though.
Done. Shut this laptop.
The class, and I've also got a Deutz tractor. That's green as well. But it's not a John Deere like you want.
Friends.
Sorry.
Does it count if you get a John Deere hat and you can just wear that instead?
That'd be cheating, wouldn't
it? Fake it till you make it.
Actually, I had an old tractor once that was an old International. It had a Volvo badge on the front of it, and I found one day and hung it on the front.
That's the equivalent of like putting a Chevy badge on your Holden.
Yes.
Did you have another question from your stream, Matt?
Not at the moment. There's a few comments, though. A few people sort of making just general comments. Like someone says here that Bogan Burnout really does smell like a burnout competition and tastes like licking a skid pan. Well, that's
okay.
right.
Who has licked a skid pan?
Well, I'm going to go with I think that's Zach that wrote that. So that's he's maybe got experience in skid pans.
I was meant to be at Bathurst over this past weekend, so anything burning rubber that I can even just imagine is a good thing for me right now.
Actually, there was one comment here from Zach who said that he took a 50 ml sample of a Belgrove to some mates in the US, and they said it was unlike anything else they'd ever seen or tasted before.
Is that good or bad?
Take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. Are they still friends?
Milne, you've got a question, don't you?
Yeah, so I'm going full geek quite early on, so apologies. But it's probably Alex, yourself, and Peter best versed in this chat. But in terms of in crops and seasonal variation and things, you know, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're growing barley. Peter, you're growing rye. In large distilling processes in Scotland, this is obviously, you know, there's no opportunity for seasonal variation because it's all going into, you know, multiple bins and it's blended across. Are we able to see at all in Australia variance between, you know, when you get a good harvest, a bad harvest, and with that, is there a difference? Or is it the case of you just have to work harder or work differently in the still room to actually kind of make it a better, you know, do you just have to work harder when you had a more challenging season, or do you actually find a difference in taste, a difference in flavor because of a seasonal variation?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a difference. So the Scottish distilleries, they are so steeped in tradition and everything is done exactly the same. So if all the process is exactly the same every year, year in, year out, then you might be able to pick up some seasonal variation. But, you know, working with rye, you know, we get some good crops and some bad crops. In fact, in some ways, people, when we get a bad crop, we end up with more flavoursome whiskey because there's a lot more husk in it. that's about the only difference I can see. But yeah, I don't know if I'm good enough to be able to tell the difference between one season and the next, because so many things happen in between. Now we did a lot of fair bit of wild fermentation, sour mashing, and that pretty well obliterates, I think, the quality of the grain, or the slightly marginal difference in the flavour of the grain from year to year. It's just, that's just so subtle that it just wouldn't come through, I don't think. You'd have to have incredible taste buds to ever know the difference.
Yeah. Because I think I vaguely remember, and Alex, I think you were part of this conversation in the same night, but I remember talking to Ray from Webster's about this. And it was, again, about oil content and texture in whiskey. And I find that Southern Hemisphere whiskies have more viscosity, have more texture from a grain perspective. You think of Indian whiskey, it's quite oily, it's quite thick in the mouthfeel, and the vast majority of Australian whiskey I find is, for what's very young whiskey, is full of texture and full of flavour. And I think both of you kind of said, "Oh yeah, it's the oils." So can you explain that any more?
I think a lot of that oiliness comes from the stills, though. I mean, when we're talking barley, there's huge malting specifications for that barley when it comes from farms of like protein, nitrogen, weight, size, and for it to be like, for example, protein, between 9 and 12% protein to be malting grade.
Do you have a higher protein rate in Australia than Scotland, or did I make that up?
Less rain generally translates to a higher protein. So, for example, our crop last year, one paddock came in at like 13.5, and then another paddock came in the 9s, 10s.
Okay.
So a lot of it's to do with rainfall. So less rainfall, higher protein. And there's guys from like Westland's Distillery. I think his name's Matthew.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of research about grains and drought and changing the malting process. There you go.
On cue.
He's doing a lot of testing on different grains. Like unclassified grains or unclassified for malting. Different protein percentages.
He had some purple barleys and heirloom.
Yeah, so different varietals.
I feel like we all fanboy. Like, he came up in conversation last time we were all together. I mean, there's definitely a fan club here of Matt Hoffman.
Yeah, so he's doing a lot of testing, basically on testing different profiles of barley to see how we change our malting process to be able to put it into whiskey and see how it does change, because at the moment all of ours sit within a standard specification. They've got to be classified for malting. So, for example, the breed strain of barley that we're growing right now was passed November 2 years ago, November 2 years ago. And we're in trialling stages until it got passed as a malting grade barley. And now it is, obviously, but it's been passed all around the world. Australia was one of the last ones to put it through. But it is actually said to be a drought-resistant style of barley. But even we were pulling like 13% protein last year with it. So I think a lot of the oiliness, from my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, gents, comes from a lot of the stills. Do we agree?
Oh, I'm out of my depth here, so I'm just going to nod. Yeah.
I've had both. Like, so I've had people talk about it as from the still perspective, but the volume of you look at Cavalan, you look at Omar, you look at Paul John, you look at Amrit, you look at Starwood, they've all got that same texture, and so yes, I agree. Like it comes in from the distillation point of view, but you almost just think there has to be something additional because these guys are all playing in a different park, and proteins is exactly what it was. I I was very drunk at the time of this conversation previously, so I lost the memory of what I was being told. But I now remember it was proteins that you confirmed.
So, for example, like, and you guys that have travelled space-side and all of that, when you get into your tours and you ask those like insane questions that lots of the tour leaders just go, "Oh, shut up." You're asking does their grain come from? Most of the distilleries have the grain come from the same companies. And it's put into huge, it's like Grain Corp here in Australia. So when we're selling grain, we sell to Grain Corp, or we sell to the nearest silo that's doing the best prices. And it's graded and put into huge silos of whether it's malting grade or feed grade 1, feed grade 2. So it is all basically, unless you're doing specific farm to distillery kind of stuff, and through a malting facility, it's all coming from a couple of different companies, right?
Which creates consistency, and there's a benefit obviously to it in terms of pricing consistency. Yeah.
Is Peter, are you malting yourself, or are you sending it to be malted?
Malting myself. I only malt about 20% of the grain, so technically it's a grain whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who's been to visit my distillery will see there's an big old industrial clothes dryer that I do my malting in. It's like a malting drum.
Okay.
It does everything.
I had no idea you're still using that, Peter. I remember that from years ago. I thought that's very cool.
Well, it's actually right at the moment. It's broken down. It's rusting out of it. And I need a bit of reinforcing around it. So yeah, that was one reason we haven't been doing much distilling this week, because we run out of malt. But a couple of hours there with the well, be back again. Sorry, Alex.
I have one dream in my life, and that is to see that. Ever since I heard about it when you were at Grain Bar, I've just been like, I need to see that.
It's ridiculous.
I've got photos somewhere. I can dig them out. I can put them as screen share if I can find them.
Very well photographed, that is. But poor old thing, she hasn't got much life left in it. I've got my eye on another one in a hotel in Hobart that's broken down, and actually someone offered me a big stainless steel dry cleaning machine the other day. It weighs about 3 tons. I've got to go and get that, and may actually turn that into a still, not a malting machine. The dry cleaning machine, believe it or not.
A quick question, and there's been a couple of questions come through. One of them is about our desert island whiskey, so I'm going to be asking that in a little bit, so you can start thinking on that now. But one was about, do we think we're going to end up seeing like Brookladdick and releasing single grain releases, which I think is in terms of like single varietal barley releases, which I love and I'm very excited about, and there's been a few that go out there, but it's time consuming and it's expensive to do. So I guess, Peter, all your stuff is essentially single varietal releases.
Yeah, well, this variety of rye that I use, when I was about 16, 17, the local agriculture department gave me a little brown paper bag full of this new variety of rye called King 2. And my brother and I, we shipped a patch in the garden and sowed it by hand, harvested it by hand, and like the third world countries, they throw it up in the air, let the wind blow the chaff out of it. And then over the next 3 years, we sowed bigger and bigger patches, and from that little brown paper bag, one variety, I've sown thousands of acres since then, and that's what I'm still using. And it's probably, what it'd be, 40, 50 years old, nearly. 50 years old now, that variety.
So have they named it after you yet?
So, what, sorry?
Have they named it after you yet?
No. Oh, King 2 it's called.
That's right, King Bignell. That could work. It does make me feel a little bit inadequate though, because I'm pretty sure all I was doing at 16 and 17 was chasing girls and trying to sneak into clubs. I think you've had a more fulsome life than I have.
Yeah, we all did a bit of that. I mean, my aim in life when I was at school and on to early university was to keep getting old enough till I could get into the pub legally. And I had to get to 21, and actually they jumped the age down to 18 before I got to 21. So I was there, and that's it.
Yeah, I did. Had a quick question coming in here. just to change the subject a little bit, because I've seen a few of us all reach for new whiskies, just to go around and see what we're drinking at the moment. But also Scotch Down Under asked the question, stuck on a desert island, you can only take one bottle with you that you're able to buy at your local bottle store. What do you take?
AKA the Oak Barrel.
I don't think the Oak Barrel is the local bottle store for Peter Bignell somehow.
I'd get very, very bored with just one bottle, but it'd have to be a Lagavulin of some sort, not particularly fast, probably one of the higher ABV ones, because it was the first whiskey that I drank, like I said earlier, that I discovered I liked.
It stole my idea. I actually was in my local today and saw the new Lager 12 from special releases. Every year it was a favourite of mine. I was very fortunate of being somehow selected onto the Diageo list of PR people. Clearly they got that wrong. But I was on their PR list of people that could attend the special releases each year. And I mean, you fanboy over the Port Ellens and the Brewers, but the Lagavulin to me was always, it just, 12-year-old cask strength. It was clean. It was crisp.
Great whiskey.
It's one that I can't fault. I now struggle to not justify paying for it, and it's one of those annoying things. Like normally, you kind of just have to sort of go, yeah, well, I need to justify why I should buy this, and it's that I kind of have to sort of go, why would you not? Like what's the reason that you wouldn't buy this? And there's very few whiskies that I buy consistently year on year that are technically, single batches, small batch releases, but it's something that each year I'm like, that's incredible.
Alex, because I know you love picking favourites.
I don't choose between my children. Shit. Sorry for swearing.
Why getting started? Was that?
Yeah, that's the one, I think, Peter.
Yep. I can't remember where I got that.
How many whiskeys have you got there, Peter? Because so far we've mentioned them and you keep pulling them out. So if I
we need to go to Taz for the next episode. You can just get a boat. We're coming to you, Peter.
What's happening? I lost it there for a moment.
Well, we were going to come down to you with your collection down there, but I don't think they'll allow us in at the moment.
Oh, okay, gotcha. No, we lost the connection there just for a sec. Yeah. Yes. No. If you come down here, you'd have to quarantine yourself here in the distillery for 2 weeks. That'd be terrible.
That's a thought.
Sorted. Yeah.
Should we come back to you, Dahlenburg?
All right. Far out. Okay, I'm not playing favourites, so I'm not saying brands, but can drink a bottle of Jack without a problem.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Because my one's
isolation 1 litre bottle right there.
Because my one is.
How long have we been in isolation?
Yeah, exactly. You know what? I commend that answer. That's amazing.
That and Wild Turkey Rye is one of my absolute favourites as well. I know that, all of you guys are probably fairly single malt style gents, but the country girl and I suppose bogan in me loves a bit of bourbon or American whiskey. So, the American single malt I'm drinking right now.
No. There's a lot of bourbons I love.
Since we've been sitting here tonight, I haven't drunk anything but bourbon, to be quite honest with you, because we just came off a bourbon tasting, so I've just been polishing off my 50 mils of Booker's, Bakers, and that sort of thing.
I like a bourbon. I don't think it'd be my desert island. I think it'd be my my backup desert island. But I think it sounds snobby, but honestly, something like an old malt lacquer or an old Kalila would do me just fine. Something with a malt lacquer or a Kalila with a bit of age on it.
That's not something you can pick up in your local bottle, eh?
Sure it is. Sure you can find like a 20-something-year-old malt like somewhere in your local bottle shop. I don't know. Am I wrong?
Yes, you're wrong.
Yes.
That is an incorrect answer.
I did.
Fine. You know what? Actually, I'm going to go. Here you go. I'm going to go with Archie Rose Rye. I think it's a really bloody good whiskey. And
Can you get that easily?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can actually. Yeah, probably in the city.
It's at my Dan's. It's everywhere. Come on.
All right.
It's got to be Jameson for me.
Yeah, I know. You're going to go with Jamo. I know.
And when you're on a desert island, when you get bored, you could mix it with leaves and you can mix it with sand and salt water because Jameson.
You can make your own tanner.
Yeah, it goes with everything Jameson, so you can make any cocktail on a desert island you wanted with it.
I did class it up for tonight and went for an American single malt instead. But I have been absolutely loving like the Elsa Bay. Again, bang for your buck. It's just brilliant. I'm not in a sort of area where I can get over to places like Oak Barrel to buy some amazing drams, but definitely sticking with the favorites right now.
But his mind is incredible, Brian. It's just you listen to him talk about how he makes whiskey and I quite often I saw a sort of in the UK quite heavily the progression of distillers who are distillers and they've been doing that job for 30 years, for 40 years, for 50 years, and seeing the sort of the modern scientist distiller come into the jobs. I think a lot of us were skeptical about what were they doing, and do they really know and understand the history and the background behind this all, and what's the mindset to their making. They're very much just looking from a science, not from a experience perspective, and that perception was just blown out of the water completely when I met Brian Kinsman, and he was just like, and this is how I make whiskey, and you just like jaw drops and like, that's incredible. Like, it's just his knowledge is sublime.
And they're doing the reverse finishing basically, with the Hudson Valley bourbon barrels for 6 months first, and then going into larger barrels.
Yeah, I struggle with Hudson, but personal preference. But I think Elsa Bay is incredible. I know. I'm sorry.
Alex, you inspired me. Actually, I'm going to have an American single malt as well. There you go.
What are we drinking?
I'm going with it's called Cornography. It was one of our Balcones casks or Balcones, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
Have we come to an answer on that? Is it Balcones or Balcones?
I don't know.
Balcones.
I always say it with the ES. But
Alex and Andrew both said the opposite thing with utter conviction just there, as if like we were fools for even asking the question, but both said different things.
From my experience with them, I'm 99% sure they said Balcones. We had a really random run-in with them when it was the old distiller, Chip Tate, who caused a bit of controversy in his time, and he rocked up at our show one year and just decided to create a stand in the corner and just sort of opened up a suitcase and started sampling his whiskies. And it was all in good faith, and he was just being friendly to some people and just happened to have whiskey in his bag, but it didn't come across as very appropriate at all. And yeah, I had the joyous task of having to tell off a distiller and say, you can't turn up to our show and just start sampling your whiskey. But from memory, he was Balcones, but we were always wrong most of the time.
And Peter, what was your desert island whiskey?
Yeah, what did you settle with?
Lagavulin, but since while we've been waiting, I did actually end up cracking this open, this 12. Oh, beautiful. Yeah, love it. Some of the other ones I had have been a little bit light, but this is 54.4%. I reckon I must have got this at the distillery last year, I think, because I can't imagine why I've got a full bottle of it here still. But yeah, I reckon I bought it there last year, and it's a bit of collection over there in the corner of stuff I haven't opened yet.
There's been a lot of love.
So is that one of the?
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was going to say. So is that one of the jazz bottlings rather than special releases?
Yaz
Festival. Do you know why that came about? Because Nick Morgan, who works at Diageo, is a huge fan of jazz and wanted to just bring some jazz music to Isla, and just went, I'd really like to do this both. And so
I love
created a festival for.
I love following Nick on Facebook. He posts incredible, not just Diageo but whiskey history. And some of the
he is their historian now.
Oh yeah, and some of the things I've learned from him have been unbelievable. I mean,
a lot of love for Lagavulin on the feed. A lot of love for Alsa Bay as well. A lot of people agreeing with me that Pinot Noir and Jameson is the ultimate combination. They may have not said those words in that order, but that's how I'm reading that sentence from those couple of people.
Straight through your brain.
Yeah. I just see words, rearrange them. But the great Joey Ty asked Matt Bailey a question.
Oh yeah.
How many Society bottles do you personally own right now? And I think the answer is 0, because doesn't he just snick them and write them off?
Tasting.
Not including tasting stock, which I draw out whatever I need. But how many Society bottles do I own? I'd say I don't know. It's around 100 and something, maybe 120, 130. It's not an obscene amount, but it's too many. And I don't buy that many bottles because I get to taste a lot. But this is this was here and there, bits and bobs, things that stand out for me. I can safely say it's probably around 100-ish. I don't count. I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, and I totally agree, man. Sometimes we just have to slum it with 27-year-old Malt lurks and 40-year-old Klein leashes that are probably brewers. I totally get it. It's just the life we live here in the 0.1%.
All these 40-year-old Klein leashes I've got sitting around, I just don't know what to do with them. So that's fine. No, are you kidding me? No. It's not like that. I do have some, and it varies because especially at the moment in lockdowns, I've been opening a lot of bottles again. So it's that's fun. But
I left all of my sealed bottles away, far away from me right now.
Right.
Way in hell I was going to keep them in lockdown.
Alex, can I sponsor you a liter of Jack? Is that okay? I'm going to sponsor you a liter of Jack. I'll have it sent to your address.
I'm really out of it.
I know. I just saw that. That's why I'm happy to sponsor a liter for you. Because the 700ml bottle just doesn't do it justice. But you need that 1.125 liter. That real belter.
The one in the rocker.
Yeah.
I went into Porter's Chatswood the other day. G'day to those guys. They're really
an illegal bottle shop visit. Nice one.
Yeah. Not for any other reason that I saw a Jack there that was white label and 37% that I'd never seen before.
A white label Jack that was 37.
Yeah, and I was like, oh shit, I'm going to buy that. But then I bought something else instead.
Was it bottled in Australia?
I'm not sure. I picked it up and obviously being 30%, questioning it. But I'm actually probably going to go back and get it tomorrow.
I guarantee that. Well, if it wasn't bottled in Australia, it wasn't bottled in Tennessee.
Well, it's
like one of those sort of curios.
Yeah, I was quite impressed with it. I was like, oh, I'm just going to buy that for the sake that it's white, just for some fun, and it's a bit different.
Yeah, right. Been left in the sun a bit long.
No.
Yeah, cool.
I missed that. Is that the colour of the whiskey or the label?
No, the label. So it's a white label, and 37%, which is really weird.
Yeah, I would have thought. I don't know much about it. I would have thought that'd be bought in bulk and bottled in Australia because I think we're the only ones allowed to go down to 37.
Yeah, I think it's Americans. I've seen when I moved over here, there was a bottle in the cupboard that my sister-in-law had left in the apartment years ago, and that was, I can't remember which distillery it was, but it was an American distillery. I think it was Beam actually. And it was, again, it was 37 and a half. So I don't know what your rules are here for that.
Well,
bourbon you can go down to.
It can go down to 37 in Australia. I don't know I thought that was changing. I thought that had already been changed back to 40, but I could be wrong on that. But interestingly, it's only for spirit that's bottled here, not for where it was distilled. As in, Beam have been doing it for forever. As in, even Beam 40%, Beam white label is bottled in Australia. And it's shipped over at 50.5 or 51%, and then bottled here at 40. And it's
there's a bit of that from the bigger companies that want to bring ABV down, but also from 750 to 700 bottles. When you have the scope to do that locally, you can. But I think that would be perhaps the most depressing job in the world is being the person who turns the water on and waters down your Jimmy or Jack a couple of percentages to get it through. It's like, imagine waking up in the morning is like, oh, what am I going to do today? Oh shit, not again. It's like, it'd be soul crushing.
Well, in that respect though, it's if it's coming over at 51% or something, and you're the person who's got to turn the tap on. I mean, what's coming over is essentially what young bookers almost. It's like a 3-year-old bookers, and so there you go. So yeah, it'd be soul crushing.
Just quietly though, I'm all for it.
You're what? Sorry.
Watering. Whiskey.
You're all for it.
Yeah.
Here or there or where? Or you don't care?
I don't know. This is a very good point, because this is the only person in this round table that works on premise predominantly.
Yes.
So this is a good differing opinion to our normal echo chamber of dickheads.
Cast strength or nothing.
Yeah.
I've never said that. I have never said that.
So, Alex, I'd like to hear this.
Oh, I'm not a huge fan of, and I know I've just released a 56.5% whiskey with Mjolner, and it's custom and it's delicious, but I put a shitload of water in it, and I like my whiskey about 43 to 46% ABV. A lot of people, I mean,
you add a lot of water to yours. You add a lot of water to your Highland Park, you say?
I do.
Yeah. So, but you're adding it.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. No, I sit on the fence and I'm everyone's friend and I will go for anything and everything.
No, I'm just making that distinction. I'm not. That wasn't a gotcha. That was sort of like, I'm making a distinction here. Like you like to add that water.
Yeah, and I do not whiskey shame for a single second. You drink it any way you want. I don't give a shit if you're drinking it with fucking grape Fanta or whatever you want.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
However, I like whiskey at a lower ABV rather than, and that is a personal preference. But one of the biggest things I learned was sitting next to David Stewart at Balvenie and watching him put the amount of water he did in his whiskey.
40 or 43, isn't it? Something like that.
Oh no, holy hell, like with water. And I would imagine brought it down to probably 20 to 30% when he's drinking it and like doing his taste and flavor profile. And like I watched him do that. And I don't know, I do experiment a lot with water. I mean, there was almost a dust up, I think, with Greg Sven and I when we were doing the Highland Park. I'm like, I don't want it at cast strength, guys. Like, and they were like, no, we do cast strength and then you can water down from there and people can drink it any way they want. And I agree with that. I just wanted more whiskey to sell. But it's great at 56 point. Like, it is great the way it is. But personally, I am not a cast strength kind of gal anymore.
Fair enough.
Well,
I got older and shit changed. Like,
you're talking about how much water was added, down to 20% maybe. Yeah. I was in Scotland with Bill Lark and Tim Duckett and a few others a few years back, and we're sitting around this little kitchen and there's a couple of Scottish guys there.
Yeah.
I didn't really know who they were. I sort of missed their names and they came in, and the guy next to me held up his glass and said, see the legs there crawling up the glass. He said that the right amount of water is to put in there so you come up halfway up the legs. See where the legs are, come halfway out. And I thought, crikey, that's way, way too much water. You don't put that much in. You put a few drips in. And I felt like saying, no, that's not right. Anyway, I kept my mouth shut because it's up to him. I discovered the next day he was actually, I can't remember his name now, but he was owner of one of the big distilleries over there. And like you, Alex, your friend, they just with heaps of water in it. And I think they can analyse it a bit better once you get the ABV down, but I don't appreciate it as much. I don't
totally agree for analysis. For analysis, like bringing it right down is hugely critical.
Yeah.
We've done that for
most analysis at 20%.
Yeah, exactly. Even I was very lucky to do a full new make analysis session with Loch Lomond when I was over there, and we brought all the new make samples down to like 17 or 16% ABV, like measured. And so it's like we can actually taste all the spirit character at 16 or 20% or whatever it is, rather than being anesthetized by the ethanol. So I fully respect for analysis. It's hugely important. Yeah.
It's interesting what Alex was saying, that I do like cask strength whiskies, and I would like to take every whiskey on its merits. Some I love at 60, some I love closer to whatever. But my sweet spot tends to be about 46 to 49 and a half. That's where those whiskies for me, like the ones I always go back to, like 48 is bang on for me.
46 is bang on for me, but like, I mean, you think about all the whiskies we've just talked about that are our desert island whiskies. What are the ABVs on them? Any of them cask strength?
I mean,
your answer was wrong.
Wrong to begin with.
What do you call cask strength? There's some, this Lagavulin 54.4. Is that cask strength, or has it been diluted?
I'd say it's pretty.
Well, that was what I was. Yeah, and that's something I wanted to argue. Is I used to work for an independent bottler, sort of as a sister company I was working with, and we did that a lot. So we bottled certain things at cask strength, 100% as you wish, but there's another range that we classified as foolproof, and we didn't say cask strength, we said foolproof. And the reason we did is because we cut the whiskies to not 40, 43, 46, or anything like that, and every single whiskey, every single batch varied, because it was roughly 6 to 20 casks as an average, probably across the range. But we were bringing it down based on, or they were bringing it down based on preference and on flavor. And it was a case of, cask strength is too much and it doesn't taste right. We'll bring it down to this, and it might be 55, it might be 52, it might be 51, but they brought it down to that level that they thought you still got the cask strength element for those that want that, but actually it's now balanced and is at a level that tastes good.
Yeah.
But again, it's completely up to the person drinking it as well, though. Which is where my argument is gone out of the water, that like, if it is cask strength, people have the choice to either drink it at cask strength or water it down like I do.
But I think it's good to start with something that is balanced. I do find it unusual when you get cask strength, but it's actually not. It's not balanced as a whiskey. There's preference in flavor and taste, but when it's not actually a balanced product, it's just actually something's out of kilter. It's like, well, for the sake of doing it, I'm genuinely not pointing fingers at anyone, because it's rare that it happens, but it does happen. Everyone has one slip through the net, and you just think, why did you do that? Like, you could have just dropped it down a couple of notches, and it's beautiful.
I agree, and there's certain an element of, I don't think people should have to work on their whiskies. You can play with it 100% if you want to, but if you've spent hard-earned money on a whiskey, a full bottle, or a dram at a bar, or whatever it is,
have to work to make it good.
Yeah, you should play with that. Just a few loose ends at where we started this conversation. I think, as pointed out on the Facebook stream, that Jack Daniel's is probably the Jack Daniel's 1907, which is one of their sort of sublines that they push through. And
thank you, people.
One of the great Facebook groups is Aussie JD collectors, because they hunt every different barcode ever known to JD. That's very good people watching.
How the hell am I not on that?
Mate, get on it. It's unbelievable. It's awesome. It's one of my favorite Facebook groups. And they will go, and if there's a different box or a slightly different label, it's going. But we do have a distiller in the room, and I've actually just moved on to the Belgrove hopped malt whiskey, if I can get my head out of the way to make that focus in. Now, this has been bottled at 50%. So obviously this is a bit of a unusual limited release that you did, Peter, but what made you bottle that at 50 rather than 55 or 45 or whatever?
Yeah, we did the first one at natural cask strength, and I just thought it was a bit over the top, just a bit overpowering. And so we cut it back a few steps, kept on stepping down and down. We tried to keep it up to keep the flavour into it, but it just stepped it down until we hit 50, and it just seemed to hit that note there, right on 50, luckily. We have done others that we've, especially when we do vatting of quite a few different casks, then, for my normal one I put out that's around 45, somewhere between 42 and 46, every batch, once we vat them, we will do dilution tests over a couple of weeks, and they'll always come out a different ABV. And there is a point where they will just hit that sweet spot. You can go even at 0.5% either way, and it'll be different. But yeah, the one with, I was going to do it at cask strength initially, that hopped. It was a bit too powerful. I thought, no, we'll get more bottles out of it this way, get it round a bit, because we only had one cask of it. So we cut it down to where, as far as we could, and I thought, I'd hit that nice sweet spot, bang on 50. Any lower than that, I thought, no, we're starting to lose a bit of flavour. And it's really for the people who want something different. Just for the masses, I probably would have cut it down further than that. But, for people who really want just something different, still want a bit of kick to it, and I thought, no, it hits that spot at right on 50.
I think, Peter, you probably just touched on the crux of the fact we're all arguing potentially the same thing, but watering a whiskey down from 50 to 45 out of preference, and a company watering a whiskey down from 40 to 37.5 to get it into speed rails in bars and to get the price point down. They're probably two different concerns. And I guess when you do that 37.5 thing, you take away that option from the drinker. But also, I'm not completely against this, you actually open up, you make it accessible to more people who want to spend $40 on a bottle of whiskey rather than 55 and that sort of thing. So, it's quite a multifaceted conversation, that one. Mark Teague asked Matt Bailey, quick question. Are you allowed to water down your whiskies at the Champs, which is the blind tasting competition that Society sort of runs every 2 years? And the answer is you can if you want, but what you don't understand about the Champs is actually a race to finish your 9 whiskies the quickest. So by watering them down, you actually provided yourself with more volume to drink.
It is not a speed drinking competition. Do not listen to Scotty on that one. Scott, you're a sponsor. Give me a break here. Okay.
Yeah. And the best thing about this is, for the first time, this is going out on the Society's page as well. So it's a good chance to stitch match up. And so I've started another question. Peter Bignell, why do you hold the Society in so little regard that you haven't sold them any of your spirit yet?
Also a great question, but I appreciate both. Look, no, you know what? For the Champs, you can water down the whiskies. You got to remember, Mark, all of those 8 whiskies in front of you are already commercial releases, and most of them are going to be between 40 to 43%. So you can water down what you want, but that's your call. You can do whatever you like, but you've got 30 minutes to guess them. And a huge shout out to Brooke Heyman from Whisky and Ailment, who
I have the biggest girl crush on that girl.
She's amazing. She's an amazing person.
Holy hell, whiskey person, like.
Yeah, and
incredible.
I made comment about this in last night's live stream. She handed me her order form at the 2018 Champs. She handed me her order form as I was running around the tables collecting everyone's answers. There's 150 competitors in the room, and I grab her order form, and she says to me, and only just enough volume so I could hear it. She said, "Don't look at it. They're all wrong." And she ended up winning. And she cleared it. She absolutely cleared it. And it was a great night. But the Champs will return, yes. And the Oak Barrel are involved. And in prior years, we've had both William Grant and Sons and Mo Hennessy involved, which has been fantastic.
I was meant to come to the last one, but
I know.
Unfortunately. However, Greg, Sven, this is me actually officially putting in my annual leave for the next.
You're in. Peter, you got to come as well. Andy, you've been before.
I couldn't pick it. Like, I can't pick a whiskey out of a glass to save my life. I'm just like,
I can't either.
No. That's the thing. It's half skill, half luck. That's what I love about it. It's just a bit of fun, and everything's included. Anyway,
one thing that's quite remarkable about Brooke's win as well 2 years ago is the fact that not many people will remember this, but actually she was sitting on a table with me, and that is a big disadvantage Because all I do is take the piss and like throw bits of paper at people and speed race it to have a bit of fun.
Yeah,
And
I can post a photo to the chat going on the Oak Barrel right now if you need, Scott. It's
yeah,
okay.
There's a lot of death stares across that table during that, and she still won. So that's how good she is.
Put me on Scotty. Actually, no. Divide and conquer, Scotty.
Yeah.
I feel that I
Divide and conquer.
people.
Okay, you guys are on separate tables next time. That's it.
We always need separating.
Yeah. So Peter, why do you hate the society so much that you won't sell them any of your juice?
Well, I haven't really made me a decent offer. That's why.
Yeah. So they're lowballing.
Look one day and.
No, what would imply that we've made one. That's all I'm going to say.
But Boutique made me a really good offer. There's one on their way to them.
Oh, good on them.
Bit of breaking news. Heard it here first.
Yeah, so there'll be a boutique. Yeah, I've finally finished the paperwork off today. So, and it's all sitting on a drum and a pallet there, ready to get picked up. Wow. And some from Kalara too, as well as a drummer single malt, Tassie single malt, and Christy Lark as well. Same pallet.
Nice.
Very exciting, very exciting. There's actually a, I don't know if you remember, or you probably do, Peter, but Whisky Fair last year, one of the barrel pickers or, judging panel for Boutique was out here. And actually, as he walked into Whisky Fair, I slipped a GPS into his pocket so I could see which Aussie tables he was going to be like, oh, you're selling casks as well. But yeah, so that was very interesting to watch that happen. I think it was Felix that was out here.
After that, yeah. Interestingly, I've got some barrel samples out for them and lined up about half a dozen different barrels. When that guy came down and he picked 2 barrels and then we went and had a look at them. They were the 2 youngest barrels that I had in 220 litre barrels. They were the youngest ones I had. And but anyway, he ended up taking samples of all the barrels back to London with him. But yeah, we were going to blend those 2 youngest barrels. And he said, look, they're not even legally whiskey in Scotland. So they're not going to be able to, or in the UK, so they won't be able to call it whiskey. But they said that he was quite happy. We'll just call it rye. We won't mention whiskey. They ended up, after their tasting panel had a go at them, they picked a couple of different ones that were actually over the 3 years. In fact, one of them was the oldest one that I had. So it was it's just a matter of taste. You can't rely on just one person to decide what the masses will like.
I just want to do a quick shout out to Jerry Ty asked a question before, but she also just puts a comment in that she misses drinking with all of us. And I can assure you that I don't think it's as much as we miss drinking with people like you, mate.
Yeah.
I think probably all of us had a few Melbourne and Tassie trips booked in this year that have been put on the wayside.
You all know about my recent Melbourne trip, right? Basically the
yes.
Melbourne whiskey community got put into quarantine, and that was from an amazing event I went to. Fucking amazing event.
Sorry.
Yes. I think Old Mate is still in quarantine in New Zealand.
No, he's chosen to. I've been speaking to it. Do we talk about Old Mate?
The greatest whiskey writer on the earth at the moment.
The wonderful Dave Broom. Hi, Nate, if you're watching. We went to see the film Amber Light with Fever Tree, and far out. I nearly swore my head off then. It was a beautiful movie. Like, it was stunning. Great night at the cinemas, and just such a heartwarming, heartfelt evening. And unfortunately, one of the guests, tested positive, and Melbourne whiskey community, plus myself, got put into quarantine 2 weeks before we actually went into lockdown Australia-wide. So I think you guys are all in like week 3 or end of week 4. Is that right?
4.
Yeah, no.
We're 4 weeks.
I'm 2 weeks on top of you. I got out for 3 days to come and shut down 3 venues, well, the 3 venues I look after in Sydney, and then go back into it. So, however, poor Dave was stuck in New Zealand for 2 weeks, but for some reason he's still there, I think.
Yeah, I think he was hanging on the farm.
Yeah, just hanging out. It was
It
wonderful.
seems like him. He would just be quite happy just to chill out. He's like, yeah, do I want to go back to my house in Brighton and just sit and do nothing, or do I want to chill out in New Zealand? I think it's like, yeah, Kiwi life.
Like the second I chill out in New Zealand. So
I nearly got caught out. I'd just been on holidays in Vietnam. Just got back in time to not get shut out or into quarantine. In fact, the cops rang me. Someone thought I was breaking the lockdown, and I'd a few days to spare I had. But I was about to fly straight back out as soon as I got home off to London because of the Icons of Whisky Awards. And I was going to go over there. Fortunately, I hadn't booked my tickets, and things were getting a bit hard to know what was going on. And so I thought, the airline flights are going to come down. They're not going to be able to book. A lot of people aren't going to book. They're going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And so I thought I'll wait the last minute to book. And anyway, thank goodness I did. They didn't come down the prices, but anyway, I would have got stuck there if I'd gone. And anyway, the whole show was abandoned anyway. Just went online. But I was up for Craft Producer of the Year for in the World Final, 2nd year in a row.
yeah.
I was keen to go over. I didn't win it last year. I came second. Well, I came second because I didn't come first. But anyway, I thought, maybe this is my year. But no, it wasn't again. Second again.
It wasn't my year either, Peter. That's okay. I was in the nomination.
Right. You were going to go too, yes.
Yeah, I was in nomination for Scotch Whisky Ambassador, and I didn't win international, but I was happy to win national, along with Scotty for Oak Barrel last year as well. What a night! What a night that was. That was good fun.
With all love and respect, I sent them an email basically going, hey guys, let me know when it's on, like what's happening with it. And I sent that just shortly after the Australian event. There's a whole heap of us in Australia that would love to go over. Like Talita. Holy hell. Like we were both saying stuff that we'll take annual leave and go over together just to be in that room. So I sent them an email to find out when it was on, what was going on. Didn't hear anything, unfortunately. So I didn't even know it was happening.
Yeah, organisation, not a particularly strong suit.
Yeah, can confirm.
Yeah.
It would have been
communication.
What was even happening, or whether there was any further voting, or.
Yeah, no. Ironically, for a communications company, not the best at communicating. A great night, but yeah, not good at pre-information.
I'm glad that the UK view mirrors, or the previous UK view mirrors our one.
Yeah, I would love to be in that room just to meet everyone internationally. That would just be the most magical night of my life. Yeah,
last year when I was there were some icons there that I would love to have gone up. I met a few of them, but that I would have loved to have caught up with. That they were just so mobbed by other people chatting that I don't want to break in. What have I got here? Here we go. There's
Irish whiskey.
Yeah, he actually gave me that the year before last when I was over there. I went to visit the distillery, and it's what aged in a rum cask. I thought, that's something a bit different. So it's got a few little dregs in the bottom of there. I just can't bring myself to drink the last little bit.
I've got a question for you all. What's your non-whiskey spirit?
That's easy. Armagnac.
Okay.
Cognac.
Okay.
Yeah, I reckon cognac.
Heathens.
Scotty?
Really hard.
I think
that's like, if I have to pick between Armagnac and cognac, Armagnac every time. But I can't, like, I love rum. I love gin. I'm going through a vodka phase at the moment as well. Yeah,
Stop.
No, I'm like that tried and true vodka. I mean, there's been some days sitting at home by myself, just going, "What do I do now? What do I do now?" And that's when vodka comes out. But I'm huge on. I'm like really loving some mezcals and stuff as well. I don't particularly like aged tequila, but I like Blanco tequila. But mate, that's Alex. That is for me as hard as you picking a favorite outside of the desert island. For me, a spirit out of whiskey, I can't do it.
I see. I'm easy out of whiskey. In whiskey, it's hard work. Like I am tequila.
Tequila.
Agave is incredible.
Funny,
Like,
I can terrible referencing. I was about to say a terrible phrase. Then I can knock back some of the peatiest whiskies without any problem, like for breakfast. But mezcal, I need to just sit tight with, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But tequila, god damn.
Yeah.
It fascinates me from a geek level. So I came from wine before I moved into whiskey, and sort of studied through WSET and diploma and all that sort of stuff. And so you learn with wine, you learn blind tasting, and you learn to understand terroir and why does this taste different to this, because of climate, because of region, because of altitude, because of X and X. And so you understand why a sense of place creates a flavor in the spirit. And there is no spirit other than mezcal that actually has that. And it's, the last time I was at Mezcal Fest, and I was really gutted this year because Mezcal Fest this year, that's for those listening, happens at Tio's every year in Sydney. This year it was going to fall on my 2-year anniversary in Australia. So I was really excited. I was just like, this is like worlds collide, perfect. I don't need to come up with a lame excuse to have a party, and I hate having parties for the sake of me. So I kind of would just never do them. And I was like, this is perfect. I can celebrate it without actually having to have a party and do this. But obviously didn't. But the previous year when I was there, I was going around, I was just like, oh yeah, that tastes of bell peppers, obviously, because that's San Luis Potosi, and San Luis Potosi always smells of taste of bell peppers. And you're like, it just has this green viscous note. And I was like, yeah. And you kind of move around and you go, yeah, well, that's obviously Tabala, because it's got that richness, it's got that character. And it just, it's that spirit that you go, actually, yeah, the different agave styles have such a unique flavor and such a unique approach that they are just as special as, in a blind taste. It's the only spirit really that you should be able to blind taste and go, that's from there, that's from there, that's from there, because it does actually have a sense of place. Whereas every other spirit is just, what the distiller has done to it. They've done amazing things, but whiskey is not a sense of place. Armagnac, cognac are delicious, but they're not, you couldn't sit there and go, well, that's definitely Armagnac. To a degree, you've got a bit of an advantage with Armagnac and cognac because of the grape varieties. And the
soil types. And the soil types.
Yeah, I mean, Il de Ré is one that I love from Camus. It's that small island off of the cognac region, and it's the Isla of cognac. It's phenomenal. It's this salty, saline, beautiful cognac. It's like it's spirits like that transform you and take you away, and you're kind of like, oh my god, like this is. I feel connected with this, and I feel a sense of place. I think people will love Isla for that reason, because it brings you in, and it's this sort of, I get it, you're unique and you're special, and I can pinpoint you to Isla, and I think mezcal does that to us geeks, because we can go, yeah. I get you.
One of the many things I miss about not being able to go out to bars and restaurants is good sessions at Cantina OK.
Which got 2 nominations in. Well done to the team there.
That's up to them.
Alex
incredible venue.
Yeah.
But I've actually just noted that I'm going to have a quick shot of this, which I'm sorry.
Yes.
Is excellent rum.
Yes.
Patrimonio. It's not cheap rum, but it's ex-bourbon, ex-sherry cask fatted together. Unbelievable. At 58% as well.
If you bring out any Foursquare or Hamptons, you're more than exempt, Scotty. It's fine.
Are we showing something that we don't, something that other than whiskey, right?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Sure.
Well, you can if you want. Peter, have you ever thought about distilling anything? Oh, yes, Milne. Have you ever thought about a bit of race here? Have you thought about distilling anything else ever, Peter? outside of whiskey, or I guess outside of grain?
I've done apples. So we've done an apple brandy, an apple hatchet, I called it, because initially it wasn't a brandy because it's less than 2 years old. That's it ticks away slowly. It's not a big market for it. Pineapples? Pineapple.
Peter,
you distilled pineapples.
Yeah, Peter, I was at your distillery when you were distilling those pineapples, and you had endless bottles of like fluorescent yellow spirit sitting in these bottles. And I remember that sitting there, and I was like, what's this? And you said, oh, you acquired some pineapples and you didn't know what to do with them, so you distilled them. Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, we fermented them first into crude pineapple wine and then distilled it. Yes.
Where is this now?
I don't know if there's any. There'll be a bit in the museum, I reckon. It's not here.
But what did you sell it as, like unaged spirit or?
Oh, we made it into a liqueur.
Okay.
Yep. So we back sweetened it with a bit of pineapple juice. The spirits, tiny bit of sugar in it, just to bring it back up to a liqueur flavour. Yeah.
Yes, Dahlenburg. Well done.
Apricots. Brenda's got an apricot orchard. He throws tons of apricots out every year. And so he ferments them into a very crude apricot wine, and we made some liqueur out of that. It wasn't very popular. The oiliness, I don't know whether the oiliness out of the pips or what it is. We tried to rake all the pips out, and I never was happy. In fact, the last bit of it I distilled into hand sanitizer last week.
Oh. I did want to touch on hand sanitizer because pretty much every distillery has pivoted to do that. And there's a lot of regulations and laws, around this sort of stuff. Like, how do you approach a hand sanitizer? Do you just literally go onto the WHO website and say, what are your specifications, download that and go for your life? Or how did that sort of come about?
Yeah, well, the Australian Distillers Association had a bit of a discussion on it, and the recipe was put up there. But also, I noticed that somebody somewhere put up from Hooch, where it's a measuring technique for measuring alcohol and blending alcohol for spirits, and they put up a ready reckoner thing for it. So all you do is just type in your ABV of your spirit you've got, and what ABV you want to finish with, and it tells you how much hydrogen peroxide to put in, and depending on your percentage of hydrogen peroxide in your mix you've got, and the amount of glycerine to put in it, and just spits it out, and you just stick it on the scales and add the bits and measuring out. What's happened?
No, you're still there.
Yep. No. We just stir it up in a big drum, and then filter it into containers. The biggest problem is getting the containers, the small containers. So I'm mainly 5s, 15s and 20 litre containers. Mine's going out and let others. So I've got a few chemists that want it. The hospital in Melbourne got some, and our local council, and just a few healthcare professionals are after it. We just can't keep up at the moment.
Yeah, no, good on you. They're the people that need it most at the moment.
The recipe, it's a World Health Organization recipe that's recommended that does it, and people put other bits and pieces in it, but they don't recommend it. You can put a gel in it that makes it last a bit longer on your hands. In theory, should kill the bugs better because it lasts longer. But there's never been any trials done, apparently, proper scientific trials to prove it. So the World Health Organization recommends we don't put that in it. So that probably does work, but it's not recommended. So I just stick exactly to the recipe.
The pink colouring is chlorhexidine. I just remembered from that discussion.
Chlorhexidine.
There
you go.
Yeah, a bit of Tassie hand sanitizer.
Yeah, a bit of Hartshorn there.
Yeah.
The legendary, iconic, once in a lifetime human being that is Kathleen Davies also points out that Hollywood Bignell has distilled bread and wine spit, which I've got a bottle of Kissing Cousins around here somewhere. Is that all gone now? You guys have heard this story, like the old root stuff.
That's all gone. Yeah, some of them might not have heard it. Yeah.
Share.
This is genius. This one. This is very good.
Yes, up in Sydney, Rootstock it was, yes. Yeah, that I went up there one year, and with Kathleen and presented my wares, and I did notice that we were sitting around a little closed session of about 50 people, a little ticketed event in this big event, and there were half a dozen distillers from around the world and winemakers from around the world who told their story about how they look after the environment, look after the soil, recycle everything. They do a little tasting and tipped it out in this big bucket in the middle of the room. They got round to me and I said, yeah, I'm much the same. I hate waste. I like to recycle everything. I said, but that big bucket in the middle of the room, that's all perfectly good wine and spirit that it's going to get thrown out. So I said, if I took that home and distilled it and brought it back next year, who would drink it? I think pretty well everybody's hand went up. So it was a bit too late that year. So the next year when we went up, with Mike Benny, we announced that we were going to collect all these spittoons. And we got 600 litres from this 2-day event that was all going to get tipped down. A lot of it was perfectly good wine, half bottles at the end of the sessions and dregs and things. And a lot of people, you get your glass and you swirl and you have a sniff and you have a little sip and you swirl it and you spit and the rest tip it out into the bin. So really very little of it been in anybody's mouth. But
so the opposite of a whiskey festival then.
Yeah, I was going to say, was it like 13% alcohol? Yeah, good on you.
I didn't want to haul the 600 litres of it back to Tasmania to run through my still. So the guys found Poor Tom's Distillery in Marrickville, which is only a very short distance from Carriage Works where it was. And I spent the next couple of days there with the guys there, running through their still. And during a conversation there, one of them, I can't remember which one it was, someone said, what's it taste like? He said, it tastes like pashing a stranger at a nightclub. And anyway, so it got called Kissing a Stranger. But we put it out as a white spirit, as eau de vie. Some of it we barrel aged. I think the eau de vie is much better. That it wasn't barrel aged long enough, and I think the white it was best. It didn't last very long though. It all got sold very quickly. Yeah.
I'm sure I've got a bottle out the back here somewhere that we'll have to all crack together at some point.
I don't think I'm going to give my tasting notes of hashing a stranger in a nightclub.
I did create a nice lot of stories right around the world. I got interviewed in Canada and all sorts, but our local radio station ABC asked me. The lady said, "Oh, what's it taste like?" And I started to describe it. I said, "Oh, it's got this beautiful mouthfeel," and she absolutely cracked up. I didn't realise what I said.
Hollywood Bignell strikes again.
Hollywood Bignell.
Yeah, Hollywood. Gordon Ramsay. He was here in early January, and helping me make the next batch of Holy Shit. So his sessions, what do they call them? Uncharted. I don't know if anybody of you have seen Uncharted, but he goes around these places all around the world, and they did one in New Zealand and some on a little island somewhere rather with the natives, cooking with their food. And they came here and I put into work here, shovel all the sheep shit out from underneath the shed and put it in the smoker and shovel the stuff out of the old tumble dryer to put through the meat mincer to grind it up, wet milling it, and chucked it all in the vat. We went right through and did the whole process. So it's going to be on 2 or 3 months' time. It'll be out.
Fucking Hollywood. Sorry.
Get that one under your hat.
Holy shit. Holy shit!
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Tuck that one in at the bottom,
And I think I know a few of you guys have tried the Holy Shit and the various other mad creations that come out of Belgrove. But one of the things I do want to make very clear is I've tried some crazy things from around the world, like shit smoked whiskey from Iceland, oak whiskey from New York, and that sort of thing. And generally they suck. And they're pretty awful sometimes. But Hollywood Bignell's ones tend to hit the mark. It's the only oak whiskey. So no, I lied. The Koval oak whiskey wasn't bad either. But I remember like the Corsair Oak Rage was near undrinkable. If anyone wants to try it, it's still at the Bat and Ball Hotel in Surrey Hills. Same bottle.
I was intrigued.
Mulled back about 8 years ago. It's awful.
Yeah, I don't like that, the outrage, because it's got chocolate malt in it, and I just don't like chocolate malts. I don't know why, but they just don't get to me somehow.
I was intrigued when you were talking about hopped whiskey years ago. We're talking 7 years ago now, probably 8 years. I worked for Corsair at an event.
Really? So I just put my foot in it then.
Well, no, I'm genuinely intrigued. But I worked for them for this event, and I was doing sampling of their whiskies, and on the whole it was great, but they had a hopped whiskey on their stand there, and they were very new at the time, and this, I'm saying something harsh about them, but it isn't something that I know of them at a distillery. I think the quality of their liquid has massively improved, and this is one bad thing in a bunch of very good eggs. So please don't see it as a defamatory thing against them. But the hopped whiskey was terrible, and I remember keeping it purely to give to people and going, don't put hops in your whiskey because this happens and it's bloody terrible. It genuinely was just like, why would you hop a whiskey? Because my God, is it awful? And what have you done to make it taste good?
Yeah, and just before you answer, Peter, as well, it happened in Australia with a lot of gins. People tried to hop, the spirit in their gins, and it just would flunk the whole class, basically, of anything you threw at it. But somehow, Peter, you've managed to get that abrasive bitterness out of this whiskey.
Yeah, it's just during the distillation run. You got to taste it and smell it all the way through the run, and work out when to do the cut. And yeah, it's all just got to be hands on, nose on all the time. And I think just
is it specific hops
work better, because I have had a hop whiskey from America when I went to a Clearwater Distillery in Florida. Yeah, he had a hot whiskey he gave me, and it just had the bitterness came through. I don't know why. It should.
It was. I had a hopped whiskey from Japan that was.
It's like I've got all of these questions that are just coming through right now. So
there's a little Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom chat if you just want to fill them out there.
I'm about to get super fucking geeky on this. Like, bring it.
Take your time. Come on.
Pellets or flowers?
What was that?
Pellets or flowers? With your hops?
Oh, no, just beer. It was just an IPA.
Beer.
Yeah, IPA. Yep. Yeah, it was a little brewery up in Launceston that when they went to pitch the yeast, they discovered they didn't have enough yeast, and so it got a little bit stressed, and the flavour just wasn't their regular flavour. So I made it for the barley they wasted and distilled it.
I think Alex's reaction to this is
so
nothing but perfect.
I want questions. I'm like crazy.
Yeah, the next batch of T-Bone was just experiments that are that didn't.
Just re-distill the beer.
Say again, it was a bit slow. Something
Distilled the beer.
I just distilled the beer. Well, that's what whiskey is, distilled beer.
Yeah.
But it's got real beer with hops. IPA. Oh, yeah, I'm upset.
Peter, just
she's taking a walk. She's taking a bit of a walk.
So,
Ricardo Stroll.
Reg Paps, who's
Yep.
now with Manly Spirits.
Manly.
Formerly the wonderful Ironbark. I did a brew with 4 pints. Did really well, and he was very adamant that he wanted, and this was probably 5 years ago, that he wanted a keg of it to redistill back then. And he was just like, give it to me, like let's do something with it. It was absolutely something I wanted to do, but never got around to it.
Oh, okay.
So when you said what brewery?
It was Kicksnare. Little brewery up in Launceston, and my son has got T-Bone in Hobart, so I get bits and pieces from him as well. Just little batches that. Well, that hasn't made a flunk lately, so I haven't managed to get any more. But He's little batches he does, experimental ones that don't work. He had an orange sour beer that didn't work, and I've distilled that as well. But I think that might have ended up in the hand sanitizer too.
I've got a lot of questions. I'll take them offline though.
Peter, I don't know if you remember back, but when you were talking about like the hop, like managing the bitterness and the flavour, and you were talking about the cuts, did you go like tighter and higher in the cuts from memory?
We take a big 4 shots cut, so we start very late compared with most people.
Okay.
But the bitterness should come in late, because the boiling point of the bitter parts of the hops is very late in the run. So we just run it until you just get a hint of that bitterness and then just stop, which is probably cut a little bit earlier than we would do with our rye. We run that quite late. So we do a wide late cut with rye, but we would cut the beer, we'd cut that a little bit earlier so we don't get the bitterness come through. But I suspect that, running in a column still, I don't know why, but with plates, that's the ones I've tasted. They've been running plates and they just don't seem to be, whether they just haven't got a broad enough range of flavours in there to hide some of those other flavours or to build the complexity. I don't know. They don't seem to work. The hop malt whiskey, getting back to people who like it or not, Whiskey and Dreams, last year, so many people came up to me afterwards. They'd been drinking malt whiskey. It's all quite similar. Then all of a sudden they had this hopped malt. Wow, here's something really different. And I hardly got a knockback from people who didn't like it. It was really interesting, just because it was just different.
Well, Scotty, as soon as we can get back open again, I'm coming straight for you and trying that.
Yeah, me too.
Now I'll leave a little bit here, but we'll need to do maybe a Peter appreciation night where we can I'll dig out that bottle of Kissing Strangers and
Isn't that like every night?
yeah. Yeah, but this time we'll actually build the statue so we can sort of like dance around it and light the fire as well.
A shrine then.
Of course, yeah.
Peter.
Time for another whiskey, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Peter, we probably should give a bit of a plug. Obviously, there's places like myself where you can buy bits and pieces of what you've got. Nip of Courage on the mainland, they're doing a lot of stuff running around. It's nipofcourage.com.au, doing a lot of stuff helping out people at the moment. So get in and support them. But also you're still up and available for online orders through direct to Belgrove there?
Yes, just go through the Belgrove website and there's a shop or a store there, and we've got currently got 15% off, and I don't charge shipping. And
if you mention that you saw Peter on this live stream, he'll charge you 10% more. We got a bit more action on the. It's a bit of a Milne appreciation moment on the Facebook chat at the moment.
I sound like your child. Thanks a lot. It's like, I like the little boy.
Craig Crafty Field says g'day as well. He's settled down. And Crafty, thank you very much for your care package. After hours, Joey and Scotty Talk Shit didn't happen on Monday this week, but it's happening tomorrow night. And we will be going through the new Craftworks Whiskies live, for better or worse, hopefully for better, on the live stream here tomorrow night. But good to see you. And the appreciation is still going on for Milne here at the moment. And a bit of a question that we sort of touched on last week as well, particularly when we were talking about Whiskey Fair and the champs. But a question's coming in from Zeno for you, Peter. Is Peter coming to Whiskey and Dreams in 2020 if it still runs in June? Now, it's not my event. I think it's a different thing because things are already on sale and things are in place. But Peter, your movements and plans before the end of the year?
I don't think I'll be going anywhere, and I don't think anybody will be. But if it's on, I'll be there.
Yeah,
but I very much doubt it. Not June.
I think
it's
the 25th of August.
Sorry,
July, end of June. End of June it was scheduled.
Whiskey and Dreams, yeah.
What dates? What dates? Oak Barrel.
End of August, last weekend. So yeah.
August?
And
No.
Champs is off of July.
Yeah. So to be quite honest, if Whiskey Fair does happen this year, it's unlikely that it will. If it does happen this year, it'll be in a very, very different format.
I would say it's probably the same for Whiskey and Dreams. It's the likelihood is as with everyone, we'll move to a virtual digital format. We yet to see what Ben will announce that.
Yeah, and
when, but I suspect gut feeling we're getting digital.
I'm not going to speak for any other events, obviously, but what I will say is, like, from our point of view here at the Oak Barrel, Whiskey Fair and Beer Fair and Sake Fair and Craft Spirits Fair and all these sort of things, that's not our core business. We are a bottle store, and then we add them on because they're lots of fun and we get to, drink piss and be happy. There's other businesses out there that events are their core business. You look at Gabs, you look at Goodfin and Wine Show. They have to happen this year at some point for their events and their businesses to stay alive. So the end of the year is going to be very, very busy. So I guess the biggest difference is Whiskey Fair is being planned. We have single cast, we've got everything going, ready to happen, but tickets aren't on sale yet. And if we get the all clear tomorrow, I can't run an event on Friday. I need lead-in for tickets. I need to talk to people like Peter, hey, can you still come, all that sort of thing. The advantage Whiskey and Dreams has is that it was already on sale. I remember speaking to Ben, ticket sales were flying quicker than ever before. So,
we had all committed as brands to work with it. So it's if we can, you're completely right. It's
if we can dig out of it, he's already got the framework in place. So there's actually probably more likelihood of that going ahead than Fair going ahead at this point, because there's been no movement on that front for the past 5-6 weeks, whatever it is.
We were committed to both Fair and Dreams this year already, obviously, and so it'll be sort of play it by ear, see what happens. Another
fan club comment. Karina Leota, I don't know who she is. I've never met her before. Says
I have pictures that say otherwise. So.
Alex and Dara Dahlenburg is my favourite. Sorry, gents. Don't know who you're talking about. No, there's no Alexandra Delahan. No, don't know who you're talking about.
D-Berg.
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 A-Bird D-Berg.
Dazerberg, which was my nickname in high school.
Dazerberg. I like that. Let's keep that one under the wraps. I like Dazerberg.
A lot more, and I'm not disclosing them.
We'll find them out.
It's got to that point of the night where Bailey's gone into full late night love request mode.
Shipping forecast to come in.
All right, lay it down for us. Your favorite whiskey drinking song, Bailey.
No, we're not quite there yet.
Oh, you just dropped the and I just have my tequila voice, which is like up 2 octaves.
Tequila voice, yes.
To go back to tequila very briefly, I highlighted that as my tequila drink. It's La Venenosa Raicilla Maximiliana Agave. It is like, when we're talking about like agave, tasting of agave, oh my God, it is incredible. And it's so much more special to me because I got into a lot of trouble buying this bottle because my wife went to New York for work and she was there for a week. And I said, look, do you mind if I get a bottle delivered to your hotel? I said, you don't have to do anything. It will arrive in your room. Nothing to worry about. And, someone will deliver it, they'll drop it off, and that's it. It's just like, okay, as long as, so I don't have time to go out and buy your stuff. So, as long as that is the case, then that's fine. But, my schedule is completely booked up while I'm there, so I can't go out and buy it. It's like, absolutely fine. Don't worry. It'll get dropped off. It'll get delivered. It did get delivered, and then it got lost by the hotel. So my wife spent a good 2 evenings working with the hotel just to find the bottle, to then get it, to then take it home. So I got in a lot of trouble when I got home, because obviously I was then having this conversation with her via WhatsApp and phone conversations between Australia and New York. Being like, oh, just go and check with reception. It's there. They've said they delivered it. Come on. How hard can it be? It's just like, they've lost it. So it was a very hard bottle to actually get a hold of.
So your hard work at home and away.
Exactly. Yeah. I really put in the hard yards for that one. And it's a belter. So I in return will bring that to you all when I see you next.
Awesome.
Healer away so I can.
So you can see straight again. I'm not on tequila, but I'm another white spirit. Peter, have you come across this? We opened it.
Yes.
Yeah,
certainly have. Yeah.
I rate that a lot. I rate this a lot.
Whereabouts are these guys? So Backwoods Distillery.
Backwoods Distillery by Lee and Bree Atwoods. No, I didn't make that up. They actually are called Lee and Bree. They got married, so that last was now Atwoods, and they started a story called Backwoods. It's just like, guys, no, it's not fair. And they're never ever going to live it down. But they're doing rye and single malt out in Yakandanda, sort of in just near Beechworth in the Alpine region of sort of northeast Victoria. And yeah, it's a very different rye to Peter's in the fact that it's very clean, it's super creamy. It's not 100% rye either. But I'm a big fan. And their whiskey is due to be, Whiskey Fair, we were talking about a few things, whether that they push things back or not. But so I just was making sure that Peter was across that. And
yes, I've got some of it.
What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah, but it's different.
Yeah. Big raps at last year's Distillers Dinner, which Peter, you've been a part of in the past.
Great stuff. Yeah.
I loved that night. That was a great night.
Yeah, it was good fun, wasn't it?
Sorry, was Matt Bailey a radio presenter for 5 years?
I was.
What was the radio and what was the music?
We're going to go full radio. Did I do 5? I did 4.5 years on radio.
I did 5 and a bit. There's 2 classical radio stations in Sydney. One is ABC Classic FM, and the other one's 3MBS, now known as Fine Music, and which is 102.5 on the FM dial. And I was a jazz radio presenter every week for every Thursday night, 7:00. I had a radio show which I ran for 5 years, which was a lot of fun. So what we're going to do now is, starting with myself and then Bailey, we're going to reenact our radio careers just with a intro, to say g'day, it's XYZ from XYZ. You're listening to Up Next Is Whatever. And then you other three, and we're getting close to 2 hours now, so this is probably a good time to start wrapping up proceedings. You other three are going to have to do some radio voices to put our many thousands of listeners here, mainly my mum and my dad, to sleep, so they can get to sleep well. So Matt Bailey, can we wind the clock back, hear a bit of radio voice? But for me and you, it has to be exactly things that we said back on the radio days. Hello.
Jesus Christ.
Fine Music FM 102.5. I'm Matt Bailey, and you're listening to the Modern Jazz Hour. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to start with a few tracks, show some local jazz musicians, and I'll start you off here.
Hold on, sorry, I'm going to need more for that. See, mine was it.
I did it for years, man. I've still got my radio voice if I need it.
So mine was a little bit looser. It started at 11 o'clock after deadline day. So I don't have any background music, but g'day, guys. It's Scotty here. You're listening to Dead Air Radio on FBI 94.5, taking you through all things punk and metal for the next 2 hours as we get into the wee hours of Tuesday morning. Pretty wide spectrum tonight. We're going to play about 51% Sydney tracks, about 75% Australian tracks as we go through tonight. First thing's a new thing that just landed in my inbox today. When I got here about an hour ago, and it just grabbed me straight away. This is all my Friends Are Dead by My Life Sucks. Hewitt, their newest one. Play. And so, yeah, the punk and metal show for 5 years on FBI radio.
There you go. And
now,
MBS were sort of like, they were sort of cousins. They sort of bounced off each other. They did.
to be fair, we were definitely doing this at the same time. Like, not literally the same, but like during the same period.
Parallel careers. You already know that. That's okay.
I do, yeah.
Okay.
You're on
Alex,
the wrong side of everything. Like, just no. Like, it's my.
What are you talking about?
So
I think Peter has no idea what's going on anymore.
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, so my degree was in music.
Andy, I have a bachelor of music.
Snap. So did you? Is your? I'm learning everything new. This is amazing. What was your instrument?
Trumpet.
Saxophone and vocal.
I still play.
Of course.
My instrument was the pen because I couldn't play the guitar.
Click, 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 click.
Bass guitar because I couldn't play a 6-string.
My desk. There it is.
That's mine. Are.
I remember my first time at band camp at Bailey.
I can't.
I reckon. Can we get a bit of
My
Peter radio
guitar's
voice?
sitting down in the corner as well.
All right, Peter radio voice.
Peter, it's 9:42. You're on ABC local radio, Kempton. Introduce us to something.
Yeah, it's 9:42 p.m. on Zoom Radio, live from Kempton, Tasmania. We're just about to shut down for the evening, so enjoy yourselves. Have a nice night.
I like it. I'd listen to that. Even though you've just told me to go to bed, I'd still listen to that. Milne, and yes, I'm coming to you, Dahlenburg. Milne?
Hello?
Yeah. Bit of a radio intro for us, please, or outro.
my thing was I suddenly got the announcement of between 2 and 4 hours playtime, just as people were talking. It was I heard a conversation that just died. What?
Can you please introduce a radio?
You can't escape it. You got to do your radio outro. Sorry.
This is 402 FM. This is the shipping forecast. East, west, moving forward. Sharply. Now going west. The evening is 12 a.m. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
I would listen to that, to be honest. Like,
I'm calming.
Has anyone downloaded like the airplane tracker apps currently? And it's just the police helicopter that gets up from Bankstown, swirls around Parramatta, comes around, swirls around the city, goes up north, like every night.
I don't think any are on that nerd level with you there, Scott. Sorry, that's like another realm of just
It's
Police 22. POL 22 is the helicopter that's the only thing going around the city at the moment.
The local Facebook groups where I live are going a bit mental because the flight plans aren't what they thought the flight plans should be because they're not aeronautical experts. And so they're very confused with the fact that planes are actually moving between places and countries and things. And it's incredible to see, quite a large element of racism, but also just a complete lack of understanding that, if you buy something from Melbourne, it doesn't come here by car. And same as, the vast majority of PPE stuff that we, require in all the hospitals here in Australia comes from China. And so planes have to come from China to provide PPE equipment. That's entertained me no end in the flight path world of entertainment.
Dahlenburg, you're up though.
Yeah. Dahlenburg.
Yeah.
Love song dedications, please.
Outro. Here's your radio outro.
To all you movers and groovers, it's 9:45 p.m. this Wednesday evening, and we are saying good night on Whisky dedications to your Jack, your Westwood, and your Angel's Envy this evening. Sleep tight and happy whiskey dreams.
Hell yeah. What a finish.
I was going to ask about 17 times about that Angel's Envy because I haven't tried it yet. But that
Yeah.
might be something for next week.
Yeah, let's do that next week. Penny will love me forever.
Because I don't think Bacardi Noah exist. Because every time I call them over the last 5 years,
I'll tell you all about it next week, guys.
yeah, they're just like, we can't sell you that. It's Dan's exclusive. It's like, but I'm the only one who can pronounce Craig Gallagher, so it's
Like-
Dan's exclusive.
Don't say the last great malts though. Come on.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight on Facebook, YouTube, Zoom. There's a few people jumping on there.
2 seconds. My mom's just like, are you live now?
Well, the best thing is, this is here forever now. So she can sit up and watch these 2 hours and 6 minutes back again and again
and again.
and again.
I'm going to send it to all of them.
Going to mama.
Yeah, thank you. If everyone has half as much fun as I always do, we're all in good shape. A big thank you to, first and foremost, Peter Bignell. And, mate, I really hope you get electricity back in Tasmania soon to put some lights on.
Where are we? Oak Barrel. Thank you very much, Scotty.
Pleasure.
Peter, I just said before you go, Scotty, I have had many nights where I have had a few, and we've been at some sort of awards.
Can you just hold this thought? Can you just hold this up for 2 seconds because the alarm's about to go off here, so just be 2 seconds.
I can talk without you.
Go
Peter,
on.
there's been many nights that I have had a few at a couple of different Whisky awards that I've pinned you and talked to you and asked you all the questions in the world.
Sorry, resume proceedings.
Oh, I did without you.
Oh, okay. Was it? Do I look good at the end of the story or not?
Yeah, you do. You're fine, mate.
Good.
Not about you, Scotty. Peter, you've been one of the most gracious people in the world when I've asked questions, and I tend to get a little obsessive. A lot of distillers know that, and sometimes I give you a safe word when I start asking questions. And Peter, you've just been absolutely amazing in answering every single question I had. You even offered advice to my father and to give me your number to call my dad.
Oh, don't remember what that was about, but all right.
His knee replacements.
Oh, yes, that's right, yes.
But you have been one of the most wonderful people I have come across in the industry, who just offers up knowledge and your distillery. So I'm incredibly grateful to have met you and have a relationship that I can have a drink and a dram with you when I see you. But thank you for everything you do for the Australian whisky industry. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very, very much. And, you know, I love being involved with you because you're from a farm like me, but you're also on the other end. You know, you bridge. I'm from the farm I can only go so far towards the bars, and you carry it that little bit further. Thank you very much.
No, I appreciate everything you do, Peter. So thank you.
Yeah, so there's a reason why we bring Alexandra onto these things, because she does that a lot better than we do. So.
But I heard your
Sheer sincerity.
Yeah. And a big thank you to Andy Milne, whose idea this was a little while ago. Peter, yeah, thank you very much. Everyone who has joined us on the live chat around the various platforms, thank you so much. If you're listening on the Society page, I really am sorry that you have to listen to Matt Bailey all the time, but you know.
But
at least the whiskey's pretty good.
Available, right? I'm joking, Matt. You're amazing.
Love you, Alex.
We'll do this again next week, yeah?
Yeah.
Done.
Mhm.
And thank you so much, Scotty, for hosting. And Milne, you're amazing. Matt, damn that voice.
Yeah, Matt, man.
I'm not going to go to that voice now.
Yep, great evening. Thanks very much. And make sure you all get down to Tassie again as soon as the borders open up again.
Indeed. Stay safe, Peter, and look forward to seeing you soon.
And just Peter, can I like as a local, can I hit you up for a passport to Tasmania? Because apparently to get in Tasmania, I need a passport and a second head and like 11 fingers. So like I can get the papier-mâché head thing going. I just might need you for the passport.
Well, we've got a photocopy. We'll make your passport.
Yeah, beautiful. Done. Awesome. On that note, it's about to get silly. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to kill the live streams off.